let's talk about what we learned from Ohio State's Pro Day, and let's do a little Formula One talk on the back end. I'm going to put a timestamp down there so that you understand when this part of the Ohio State conversation ends and which part of the Formula One stuff begins. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, welcome. Thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round, so if that is something that you are into, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Who do you think had the most to gain at the Ohio State Pro Day? I'm going to answer that question by saying the teams that showed up. Like, it's kind of a trick question because it was a who's who of NFL personnel at Ohio State's Pro Day, and that's what we would expect from the team that just won the national championship. But I still think it is important to list off just who was in attendance and what they might be looking at when we get to these prospects. So there were 6 head coaches: Ben Johnson at the Bears, Raheem Morris at the Atlanta Falcons, Kellen Moore at the New Orleans Saints, Brian Schottenheimer at the Dallas Cowboys, Mike Tomlin, Pittsburgh Steelers, and Mike Vrabel, New England Patriots. Mike Vrabel, who played linebacker, as many of you well know, at Ohio State. And then there were 5 GMs: Terry Fontenot of the Falcons, Brian Gutekunst of the Packers, Omar Khan at the Steelers, Ryan Poles at the Bears, and Mickey Loomis, the Saints. So anytime I see a head coach and GM in tandem, I know that they are looking to buy. They're not just looking to look. So when I see the Falcons and the Steelers and the Saints and the Bears have all brought both their head coach and their general manager to view, you can come to understand why I feel as if many of these players have an opportunity to not just get drafted, but get drafted highly. And that's worth pointing out. That's worth talking about because that's not always the case at pro days. For those of y'all that are unfamiliar with attending pro days, it's usually a mix, right? Every now and again, you really do get a player or two that we know are going to get drafted in the first round. Who comes to mind for me right now is Kyler Murray at Oklahoma when he went through his pro day. What that opportunity allows for, though, is for other players who may not be high on anybody's draft board at all, maybe not existed on some people's draft boards at all, to actually get in front of coaches and general managers and show what they can do. This works to great effect depending on who it is that you are talking about. But what I think about is guys like, Jeff Badet. Oh my God. It just took me way too long to figure that one out, man. I'm sorry, Jeff, but Jeff ran 4.2 at the pro day. And I was going, wait a second, Jeff Badet got speed like that? Where was that? Or finding out that Kenny Steele's got wheels. Those sorts of things, right? That happens at Oklahoma. It was really interesting to see that this pro day featured basically dudes that are all getting, or they're all draft eligible for the first time, and guys that are not free agents. Like, I'm looking at this, and the list of players here is kind of remarkable when you think about, just players, but also basically the Ohio State offense and defense. We're talking about Will Howard, running backs, Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, Emeka Egbuka, we'll talk about a little bit later, G. Scott at tight end. Offensive line, this is interesting. Donovan Jackson, Seth McLaughlin, Josh Fryer, and Josh Simmons. You could draft all 4 of those guys, put them on anybody's offensive line today, and they would make you better. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Bears. Also, Jack Sawyer, JT Tumalau, the defensive ends who were stars. Talik Williams, Ty Hamilton, Cody Simon, got to wear the O block last year, leader on the defense. Cornerbacks Denzel Burke and Jordan Hancock, and safety Latham Ransom. The guy that made the list that wasn't a part of that team this year is Mayan Williams, who went undrafted last year, but that's it. Everybody else is someone you want to see. So at every station, right, you had players that you wanted to see perform. You had a couple of things go the way that you didn't want them to go. One is Tyleik Williams, I believe, went down with a hammy, but was okay. And he went in the locker room, came out with a wrap on, finished. I think the guy that stood out to many people might have been Emeka Egbuka because of this group. There's a lot of people that are very high on him because of his versatility. You can play Emeka in the slot. You can play Emeka on the numbers. You can have Emeka returning kicks and punts. Before Travis Hunter, that was the best all-purpose player in college football. And one of the guys that I remember going into 2023 that Ryan Day was really high on, he leaves Ohio State with the school record for catches in a career, coming out of this great wide receiver room that Brian Hartline has put together, and he could be yet another first-round draft pick, joining the likes of Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith-Njigba, just since Brian Hartline has taken over. And really, taken that wide receiver room to the very next level and ended up an offensive coordinator for his troubles. He's also got a guy over there that everybody wanted to see, nobody got to see this time, and Jeremiah Smith. I remember having this conversation with Keyshawn Johnson on his show. It's, hey, that guy could go to the NFL this year. I'm going, hey, no. You can have him 2 years. We got him for 2. Now, you can have him 2 years. 2 years, you can yours. But for the next 2 years, get your hands off. I want to see 4 playing as much Ohio State football as I possibly can. I was interested to see that, got Travion Henderson out there, but I was really curious as to who was going to run a 40 because the 40-yard dash is mythical. There are so many people that have so many opinions about the 40-yard dash and what it is used for and what it's not useful for. We still love it because it is a great indicator of just how fast someone is. And there is something to allowing imaginations to continue to run wild. I say this often. The best friend that you have, if you are telling a story, is mystery. You want to leave out all the good stuff. The things they want to know, you push to the very end of the bag. We still don't know how fast Lamar Jackson might be, right? We still don't know just how fast Deion Sanders might be, or what might have been. We know what he could do in sweats. We heard the myth, but we ain't see the laser times, right? That Emeka went out and ran the 40 and was the only guy to run the 40 and went sub 4.5 is saying something. This is at a time when Xavier Restrepo ran 4.8. There are linemen that were running faster than wide receiver Xavier Restrepo. That's an example of a guy that's probably going to get drafted, but we're talking about 4th, 5th round, and you're going to go get a guy that, frankly, has been really handsy. He can catch the ball. But Emeka's got speed and hands. He's first-round draft pick if you're looking for one at wide receiver. If guys are off the board, like Travis Hunter, like Territory McMillan, we keep going down the line here, but it's not going to be that much further before you get to a guy like Emeka that can help you out. And I'm really curious to see which one of these dudes might end up with the Steelers because I believe that they should be off of the Aaron Rodgers bandwagon altogether and on to somebody like Jalen Milroe. But I thought that about Justin Fields, and look at what they did. And then you get Russell Wilson signing with the New York Giants, leading us to believe that at the very least they're going to have a safety blanket for Brian Dable to take advantage of if they draft a quarterback and he doesn't go well. Many people believe that's going to be Shedeur Sanders if Cam Ward does not fall to them. But also the idea of having Kellen Moore and Mickey Loomis out there from Saints, you know what Chris Olave has meant to that particular franchise. And being able to add guys like Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins that give you that Alvin Kamara kind of back, that would be great. I am going to be curious to find out what people think of Denzel Burke, a guy that said that he got a first-round draft rate last year, came back. We'll see where he gets drafted this year. Jack Sawyer, Dayton Toy Malau, those are 2 of the best edge rushers in college football. We know about that. G. Scott will be an interesting dude. I think he has an opportunity to get drafted, but we'll see. I'm not quite sure how far down you want to get to tight ends because we know that Ty Warren is going to be one of those first guys off the board. We also have a tremendous interest in Harold Fannin at Bowling Green State, who I think was much more of a wide receiver, but if you're looking for Travis Kelce type, that's your guy, right? That's your guy. And then there's guys like Colston Loveland at Michigan that I think people are going to be very high on as well. But again, I think the guy that gained the most out of this has got to be the Bears. the Bears front office, because there's lots to choose from here, and they need the help for Caleb Williams. I think others that are going to make out, again, Emeka Egbuka. And then we'll see what people think of Donovan Jackson. Because Donovan Jackson got an opportunity to show himself as a guard and as a tackle. I still think he's a guard in the NFL because he was a guard at Ohio State. He had to flex out to tackle because of the injuries on that offensive line. And that tells you a bunch. That tells you a bunch about just how versatile he can be for you. And maybe that's something you value, especially at a position that isn't necessarily one of great need in guard. Guard is usually filled for the guy that doesn't have the technique or the size to play at right tackle or left tackle, but also perhaps doesn't have the chops to play center. Center is basically a quarterback on the offensive line. Maybe that's what you're thinking about for Donovan Jackson, though. Maybe you want to know if he can snap the ball. And maybe you want to know that he can take over your line calls if that's something that you're into. I am going to be curious to find out what people think about him. All right. This is where I'm going to put the marker down. And we're going to talk some Formula One. So Yuki Tsunoda looks like he's going to be in that Red Bull car for the Japanese Grand Prix, which is wild because that means that the seat has basically been cursed since 2018, since Daniel Ricciardo got up out of it. Nobody has been able to get into that car and race next to Max Verstappen and feel good about it. There's reasons as to why, but before we get to that, let's talk about Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda. Liam Lawson got an opportunity to get in that Red Bull because he put in a fast lap at Silverstone in testing, basically a couple tenths off of what Max Verstappen could do, proving that he could actually drive that car around and get a fast time out of it. But can he do that consistently, and can he do that in Grand Prix? I have been of the opinion that they haven't given him the best opportunity to launch this thing. One, they have him on YouTube doing hot laps. Why is that important? It's important because I have a man sitting at a simulator on F124 throwing down 136.7 at the Chinese Grand Prix on time trial, okay? I throw down 136.3 with this controller at 1:30 in the morning as I'm waiting on the Chinese Grand Prix to start. That is not to say that I am fast. There are about 100,000 other faster drivers on that game because they play it like a video game. You can get some really fast times there. Last year's fastest lap at the Chinese Grand Prix, which is what the game is based on, was 137. That was Fernando Alonso on a glory run, on a show run, because Aston Martin ain't never going to be no good until Adrian Newey designs them a car, and then we'll see. That they did that and they allow us to chase it has us already turning down our nose at Liam Lawson going, are you really this fast? Because we thought you would be throwing down 131s, 132s, 130s, like some of the other video game players that do esports racing. But he races the car, right? He races the car. But after Australia, where, well, he had one of the worst opens to a Formula One season that you want to have, you're already having doubts because you had an opportunity to race in 5-6 races in 2024. We're in the minority. And being in the minority, everybody seems to perform. Pierre Gasly performed. Alex Albon performed. Carlos Sainz performed. Of course, Max performed. Oh, I take that back. Daniel Kvyat? No, because they put him in their Red Bull car, and he was sorry. He was trash. They had to put Daniel in that car quick, fast, and in a hurry. And, you know, there's a few other guys that they keep trying to get pay drives in there for. But for the most part, most of the dudes since 2018 have performed. Only Daniel Ricciardo's been able to drive that thing on the limit. And I think when he got up and left, it really did put into context that this is Max's team and it's going to be Max's car. So they designed it around what Max likes. He likes a sharp car, a pointy car. And I love this analogy that Alex Albon actually gave because we can all use it. You ever play computer games? Have you ever played a computer game with a mouse with a sensitivity at 1,000,000, at its highest sensitivity? That's what it's like to drive a Red Bull racing car designed for Max Verstappen because he likes a sharp car. The thing, though, is you can use that mouse. You can use that car because most Formula One drivers like a sharp car. You want something that's responsive because it is a car that's made to go in a straight line very fast. So getting it in the corner and getting it into corners is paramount. It doesn't act like a regular car. It is a jet on 4 wheels, sucked to the ground. You need it to turn when you want it to turn. But it's very easy to overcorrect and to get on the throttle very quickly because it's already just itching to go, right? You got to have such control. And that's what Max excels at. He has such control with his hands and his feet. Next level stuff. Why can't these drivers who are Formula One drivers, who have been training for this their entire lives, keep up? It's because you keep developing the car. So as you develop the car over the year, Max generally likes a sharper car. Give me something that I can point into the corner, get it around the corner, and get on the gas, okay? That becomes really difficult to keep up with if you are used to being smooth in your accelerations as opposed to, and smooth in your braking as opposed to hard on your braking and then easing off. If you're smooth on your braking, you're smooth on your acceleration, that's just a different driving style. It's not good or bad. It's just what it is. For instance, right, Lewis's driving style is very aggressive, right? He wants to get into the corner and then he will handle it on the back end. It's also one of the reasons that he ends up complaining about the tires as often as he does because he's so sensitive to just how slippy and slidey he wants to be or not be, okay? A grippy car is one that doesn't slide at all, really. It's very rare to get a grippy car because surfaces change and you're trying to get it right. But if you get it locked in, like, say, Oscar Piastri and that McLaren, you can do some really outstanding stuff. I love a car with a bit of oversteer on it because you can always correct oversteer. Oversteer is when your back end is about to step out, right? But you can get a little bit of opposite lock in there and get that car back on track, get it straight because you can't go fast sideways. You got to go fast in a straight line. So those that have raced Monza, whether it be Gran Turismo, which is my favorite one. I do some F124, but I like Gran Turismo because it's real cars. And F1 cars are spaceships. They're jets. They're the Dark Star that Tom Cruise is flying, around the world. But when you get in that chicane, you have to be able to get that car around two very tight hairpins. It's right and it's left. You try to take some chicane, but if you take too much chicane, you unsettle the car. You unsettle the car, you can't get on throttle. You can't get on throttle, spin up the wheels. Spin up the wheels, you lose time. Okay. Liam Lawson was struggling with this. He could not get that car into corners as quickly as he wanted, and he couldn't exit as quickly as he wanted. If you compared his exit speeds to George Russell's, which were phenomenal, you'd see the difference. George was exiting every turn like a rocket because that car stuck. It was stuck to the back. He'd get on the throttle, it would go. They built a car for George Russell's smooth driving, the way that he likes to get on the throttle as he's exiting, which is one of his strengths, frankly. Overtaking begins with a clean exit, right? You get a clean exit, you're gonna make up time. You make up time to where you can get in line with the car next, and you're a little bit later on the brakes, and that's where the overtaking happens. Doesn't happen when you're on the throttle. It happens when you are last on the brake, and you're able to control it going in the corner, because it's easy to overshoot your braking point. It's easy to get stuck, okay? Yuki has been driving that Minardi for years. So they have built that car around Yuki's driving style. And they're about to throw Yuki into a car that is not built for his driving style. And we've seen Liam Lawson was faster than Yuki sometimes, in that car. Liam Lawson was faster than Sergio Perez in that car. It's an easier car to drive. And there's something about how we've been talking about the Red Bull car versus Minardi that I think gets missed. The nuance here is you want a car that's easy to drive. You really do. You want a car that is built for your skill set. You don't want a car that people say is fast, but you can't drive it. An example of this is the M4 McLaren. Ayrton Senna and Alan Prost could drive it, but we can't. It's a dragon. It's a dragon. It wants to bite you. That's what it does. You remember Lewis Hamilton's 2022 Mercedes. God-awful car. Oh, horrible car. 2023 car too, but god-awful car, that 2022 car. It was undrivable. You hear them say this. Well, you see it going around. It's like, what does undrivable mean? It means I can't predict the car. And if I can't predict what the car is going to do, I don't trust the car. If I don't trust the car, I can't drive the car fast, can't throw it into corners. That's what Alex Albon is talking about when he talks about, if your car will bite you. And if you don't know what it's going to do, you're going to be tame with it. You're not going to be fast. You want to be on something that you know what it's going to predict. You're going to be able to predict what it's going to do. Max likes that dragon. It's the way he drives it, which makes me kind of curious to see what it would be like if Max had a car that was designed around, say, somebody else's driving style that is different from his. Would he be that much faster? Probably not, but maybe. You know, when you talk about these skills that these drivers have, one of the things that I think many new Formula One fans are spoiled about is dudes used to wreck the cars all the time because they were not, it's not that they weren't that much worse than what they are, because every car is better than next year. But the point is, they were less predictable because you had less things to control, and now you get more control. So much more control that we still don't have ABS in Formula One. We don't have power steering in Formula One, and we don't have traction control in Formula One. Those are all things that you can use in other categories, okay? In GT racing, for instance. Even in parts of Le Mans, right? In WEC, World Endurance Competition. You can use those things. But we believe those are driver aids in Formula One. So we really do try to let the drivers be the drivers, right? Let's see their talent. And if you were paying attention, you'll see they're able to react and do things that we just can't. Like, that's the difference between a fast driver and a not fast driver. Someone with the ability to just react a little bit later and still keep control. That's what makes Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen. Frankly, the reason that Fernando Alonso can continue to do this into year 21, I got that right? Well, he got a year off, so 20 years of racing Formula One. He just got that reaction time, and he's trained. So watching Yuki get into this thing for the Japanese Grand Prix, I don't think he's going to finish in the points, guys. I don't. It's got nothing to do with his personality. I love Yuki. You love Yuki. We like a cussing Japanese kid on the radio. But there's nothing about his style, and there's nothing about his pedigree that would lead me to believe he's going to be that much better than Liam Lawson and or Checo Perez, for that matter. And that is really it. The reason that Checo's not in that car is because they lost the Constructors' title to McLaren last year. It is embarrassing to have a driver win a world championship and the Constructors go to someone else. That means that the other car wasn't doing its job. When it's doing its job, it looks like Valtteri and Lewis. They go 1-2. It looks like Oscar and Lando. They go 1-2. It looks like Fernando Alonso and Felipe Massa. They go 1-2. It looks like Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton, right? Who go 2-3 because they're fighting too much, and Kimi ends up winning that championship for Ferrari. That's how it's supposed to look. Christian is going to keep turning out these driver programs that have these drivers that are amazing. Like Isaac Hadjar. He's great talent. He's got to mature. Got to give him some time. He's going to be fast in that car because he's already quick. But being able to put them next to Max is something different because that car is no longer designed for what they do well. They have to adapt. And they're not given any time to adapt because everybody sees the results and the pressure comes. So the idea of leaving Liam Lawson in that car for the Japanese Grand Prix also hurts your bottom line. They are in conversation with Honda constantly to make that engine. That's who helps them supply it. Like they basically were able to pick off a few of the Honda engineers, take them out to Milton Keynes, create an engine, but they keep that relationship. And this is Honda's home Grand Prix, and they want Yuki. They want a Japanese man in that car for the same reason that Kick Sauber signed Nico Hülkenberg. They want a German in that car, right? These things really do matter, right? Kimi Antonelli's gonna be, I think, the next guy up for Ferrari if he comes open because he's Italian. They want a great Italian in that car. That's just what it is. We would love to have an American racing at Haas. We would love that. These nationalities, they come up. I would also add, it's a great way to keep a drive. Nico Hülkenberg, who has been racing Formula One for over a decade, has never, ever got on the podium. Not one time. Think about that. Even Lance Stroll has a podium. 2017 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. He took third. Valtteri Bottas nicked him at the last second to take second, but it was a wreck fest, and he ends up on the podium because of that. It's wild. It's wild. But if you can drive the car and not wreck it, something Nico can do, people want to keep you around. You start wrecking the car, you start being Roman Grosjean, Kevin Magnussen, Mick Schumacher, you cost us too much. You're not worth that. If it costs $1 million every time you wreck the car, guess what? We're losing money because you're driving. Nico gets to keep the drive because he doesn't wreck the car. Let Yuki wreck that car at the Japanese Grand Prix. Let him throw it down in Degna 2. Let him miss it. Coming out of Spoon. You know, like coming out of 130R. Let him just hit the gravel just a little bit. Chris is going to lose his mind. Because that's the other thing you got to deal with. The lens on him. Danny Rick is nice to hear in the car. Everybody loved listening to Danny Rick in the car. Humble dude, polite dude, terrifying on the brakes. That's why when he decided he didn't want to do it anymore, he got old. It's like, I get that. It's not worth it anymore. I've done everything I want to do in this sport. I used to have it. I don't anymore. Probably the thing that we all wanted most was for him to stay at Red Bull because we think that he would have won a world championship. And that would have been a much more fun pairing, Max Verstappen with Daniel Ricciardo. But it's really difficult to have two roosters in a hen house. It just is. It's the reason why Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton wrecked each other in 2016. And Nico wrecked each other at the Spanish Grand Prix. Nico ends up winning that championship and quits, retires. He don't want the smoke no more. It just doesn't happen. So I don't expect anybody to compete with Max for the number one spot. Plus, Max is that guy. He's going to wreck you. Like, I just don't like him. I just don't like his get down. Like, I love a hard racer. I don't like a jackass. I don't like anybody who's going to wreck me because I'm faster than them. Because that happens on Gran Turismo enough. I don't need that in real life. I want to see you guys racing toe to toe. Show me some street fighting. Go wheel to wheel. Hold it through the corners. Show me that you are one of the best drivers on the face of the earth. Well, now Yuki's going to get into that opportunity. Godspeed, my guy.